Stephanie McBride is with us. And hello, Alison. Thank you for joining. And she's just given us a wave. So thank you, Stephanie, for joining us this evening. Now, Stephanie is an acclaimed and accomplished, amazing author of a wonderful book and e-course that we retail on her behalf called her e-course is for Maternal Wellness. And her book is amazing, all about supporting and helping those lovely mums to be called Maternal Wellness. And we've partnered with Stephanie to present this material to you because it just captures many, many aspects of women's health. So this evening, Stephanie is going to completely have the floor. We're going to hand the time over to her. And she's going to share with you, amazing ladies. I'm assuming you're all ladies that are joining with your names, but wouldn't want to assume that there's no gents maybe watching as well. All about love and chocolate, and hopefully inspire you to get started to utilize your oils in a slightly different way if you've not done before. So, Stephanie, without further ado, please introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are. Tell them a little bit about yourself, and I'll leave you the floor for as long as you need.
Okay, thank you, Vivien. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to teach about this topic. As I was saying, I was brought up to know and believe that chocolate's good for women. And I'll tell you a little bit about my background and what I've learned about this amazing food over time and how I infuse it with essential oils and all kinds of awesome herbs and foods to make it just like a super powerful health food for everyone. So first of all, I'm Stephanie McBride. I'm certified as a clinical herbalist, functional nutritionist, and aromatherapist. And I've actually been studying plant medicine and food as medicine for over 25 years now. It's something that I have such a passion for. And back years ago when I was working in a wellness clinic, which focused on family health, I started specifically working with pregnancy, with a lot of kids and babies, kids with allergies and autism, and moms that were really tired and burned out after having babies or had complications during pregnancy. And when essential oils started to become more popular here, I really wanted to learn how to teach people how to use these safely throughout maternity. So I basically moved out of my office and I spent all of my work hours when my kids were at school reading research studies. I did case studies. I interviewed birth professionals that worked across the world and used essential oils in their practices. And I put together my book, an e-course, and it was originally designed to teach birth professionals. And I still do that. I have a certifying course in the US now and hope to in Europe as well. But I also have a course just for everybody on this topic. But I really wanted to talk about chocolate. So this class is going to be about chocolate, but what I'll sprinkle in are little tidbits on fertility and pregnancy throughout. So if you're following me for those topics, you'll get that as well. But this is for everyone, and it's mostly about chocolate. And I want to start by just giving you a little bit of background on the history of cacao and its use by people. And that picture on the top right of this statue is actually from Honduras, and it's the first known piece of art, or the oldest piece of art known to depict people eating cacao, and that's what's in his lap there, and that dates back 2000 BCE. However, a more accurate estimate of how long we've been using cacao is 15,000 years. So this is definitely an ancient food. The pottery on the right is from the Mayan people. And indeed, this food has been used, and it originated, the oldest use is in Latin America by the Aztecs and Olmecs of Mexico and by the Maya who populated Mexico and Central America. And the Mayans actually named a god after cacao. It's interesting to note that for the Aztecs, gold was not really seen as precious. It was aesthetic, but it didn't hold any value. But cacao beans did. They were used as a currency by the Royal Aztec. So they would stockpile big hordes of cacao beans and have those guarded. And I read that one fish was worth 3 cacao beans, one avocado was worth 1 cacao bean, and a canoe was worth 100 cacao beans. And incredibly, this system of currency held up until the 1800s, till 1887. Hernan Cortez, the explorer, was known to be the first European to take cacao to Europe in the early 1500s. And he called it a divine drink that builds up resistance and fights fatigue. A cup of this precious drink permits a man to walk a whole day without food. That was from a book written in 1550 called Europeans Discover Chocolate. So the original drink, the original way they used chocolate was to either make wine out of chocolate, which was actually a fertility drink for the Olmec and the Mayan. And they think this is because the tryptophan in cacao helps you to relax and does some other things, which I'll talk about later. So this drink was, I think, close to what you're seeing here below, although with cinnamon, that was not original. That was thought to be added by the Spaniards. The Spaniards also added sugar and heated the drink. And in England, they added milk. So I actually haven't tried making this recipe yet, but I'd like to. It requires raw cacao beans that you actually roast yourself. And you can follow this link below if you want to see all the instructions and the photos to make a traditional Mayan drink. Okay, so this is what the plant looks like. The Latin name is Theobroma Cacao, which literally translates into gift from the gods. I think that's a pretty awesome Latin name. And you can see that it is a tropical plant. It grows anywhere 20 degrees south or north of the equator in Africa and Central America. And the fruit there is papaya-like. They weigh 500 grams or 1.1 pounds about. And they actually start green, and then after 5 to 6 months, they ripen, and they become either blue, purple, yellow, or orange, or red. You can see some different colors there. And you won't find these often on the jungle floor because they're eaten by not only people, but monkeys, bats, birds, like parrots and macaws. Macaws, sorry, not macaws. And this is the fruit inside. Or sorry, this is what's inside the fruit. These are the seeds or the cacao beans, and there are about 20 or 60 per fruit, and they're like a custard consistency. And then on the top right there, you'll see the 5-petaled kind of sweet smelling flower of the cacao. Interestingly, these are actually pollinated by midges, not by bees. And I've actually only encountered midges in Ireland, so we don't really have them here in Oregon, where is my home base, but we have them in Ireland, and they're really pesty, aren't they? They bite and they're not pleasant, but they do pollinate chocolate. So that's why I now like the midgie.
Didn't know that.
So the normal processing for cacao is to ferment, dehydrate, dry, roast, grind, melt, and then add stabilizers, sugar, milk solids, and liqueur. So it's actually heated 3 times in the conventional processing. And when I was researching some of the neurotransmitters that are in chocolate, which I'll talk about in a minute here, I heard someone say that those are destroyed or that they're not present in raw cacao. She was discouraging people from buying raw cacao. But that's sort of a misnomer because products labeled raw, like raw cacao or raw cacao bean, they're actually not really raw. They're actually just roasted at a lower temperature. And I'm sorry, I didn't look this up for you guys in Celsius, but I believe it's around 47 degrees Celsius. It's 118 degrees Fahrenheit. So they try to keep it below that temperature, or at least below 180 degrees Fahrenheit or 82 Celsius to maintain some of the nutrition that's destroyed by heat. So when you're shopping for cacao, when you're shopping to try to make this recipe, which I have looked up and I've had friends look up in Europe, it is available. Hopefully you can find these things locally, but if not, Amazon has them. But look for raw cacao if you can find it, because it will be more nutrient dense and have a few extra benefits to it. And also a study by Food and Science Technology said that the aroma, flavor, texture, and overall quality attributes were better in chocolate with beans roasted at lower temperatures. So it will taste better as well. And I should also note, sorry, I have a little cat allergy happening. He was all over me this morning when I woke up. So it's also interesting to note that unroasted beans are not safe to eat. They could have salmonella or other harmful bacteria, so it's important to roast for that reason, as well as for digestibility. Roasting helps. Now here is my recipe. We're going to be making DIY, do-it-yourself, tangerine-infused pomegranate raw chocolate. I use fresh pomegranates. I am going to show you this recipe again at the end. And on Vivien's website, and also at the end of this, I'll give you a link where I have a downloadable version of the recipe with all the instructions written out, as well as a few other recipes and photographs and information. So you'll get a lot more look at this later if you would like to get back and look at it. And I also want to say, okay, I'm going to show you a video of me making chocolate now, and I do use sweet orange or wild orange essential oil instead of tangerine in this recipe, and I also show you how I'm making it with cranberries. So they're apple juice sweetened cranberries that are dried instead of pomegranate. So it's really fun to play around with, and you can make it your own, but you'll get to see at least how I make chocolate. First, I'll talk about the fats, or just show you what they are. So this is raw cacao or cacao butter. This is the fat part. And a lot of times this will not be brown, it will be butter colored, but this is just a really unprocessed version. So it's fine that it looks like a little bit different. And it's just, if you taste it, it's not sweet at all, and it doesn't really taste like chocolate, but you probably know cacao butter from chapsticks sometimes has it in it. It just smells really amazing. On the left, the cacao butter weighs about 176 grams, and it's a heaping cup or 236 milliliter measuring tool. And the coconut butter is 180 grams in weight, and you pretty much pack that into a cup or 236 milliliter measuring tool. I am boiling the water, and it takes a little while for that to happen, but in the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and put in my cup of cacao, and then after that gets going a little bit, I will add my coconut oil. So I want that to be mostly melted, because this just takes like 1 minute to work on getting melted. Okay, so here we have just the first stages of the cacao butter mixing in the pot, and I've turned the heat down to low or simmering so that it doesn't cook more than it needs to. And this is what it would look like if you used regular cacao butter instead of the brown kind. And this here we have, it's just a further along stage with it's almost fully melted. And so I've added a cup of coconut oil or coconut butter. Make sure not to use fractionated coconut oil in this situation, because we don't want it to be liquid. We want it to be hardened. So if you live in the tropics or keep your house really warm, you might want to keep this in the refrigerator, in the freezer, but those health benefits of coconut butter are incredible for nursing. So try to keep that in the recipe. And then next we're going to take it off the heat and add the honey. You can go up to like 8 tablespoons of honey. It just depends on how sweet you like it. So you'll take it off the heat and add the honey, and then we'll just set it aside and work on stirring together the powdered ingredients. I have the measurements written out on the slide. Basically 3/4 cup of the raw cacao, which is 177 milliliters or 96 grams by weight. And the mesquite powder is 1/4 cup or 60 milliliters or 32 grams by weight. And we also want to stir in the maca powder, which is 3 tablespoons, 15 milliliters or 64 grams by weight. I hope that includes everybody from whatever country you're from. And we're just going to stir this up really well. If you have any lumps, you'll want to try to sift those out and or break them up with your hands. So I have everything combined here. It's in really low heat. So if I can feel a little bit of heat, that's okay. But if it's really hot to the touch when you hold your hand over it, you want to wait. And now I'm just adding about 20 drops of sweet orange essential oil. And if you're going to use more than one type of essential oil, then you might want to adjust that. So for example, if you want to use frankincense, I would recommend about 3 to 5 drops of frankincense and then 15 to 18 of the wild orange or sweet orange. You want to stir it again. Okay, so now I'm adding the fats into the powders, and I'm doing this in a colander that I can pour from easily into the molds, and we want it to be a pancake-like consistency. Now I'm going to show you how I pour my chocolate mix into the mold. Now this is the first batch that I've done, and it came out really nice. And so with the second batch, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put cranberries and a couple of mulberries in the bottom first. So in each little section here, I'm going to just take time to add these, and these will be really yummy. I've used fresh pomegranate in this before, and it's amazing. So I think that would be really good if you're planning to eat them soon instead of put them in the freezer for a long time. I haven't tried freezing fresh pomegranate. It might be fine, but I think you would then want it to do thaw before eating it, or you would have a frozen pomegranate, and I can't make any guarantees on what that would taste like. But yeah, you can add as much dried fruit as you want. You can crush up pecans or almonds. I make a really nice salad with toasted pecans and dried cranberries, so I know those are really good together. Okay, so I've just got a bunch of these in here. And I do have my, see kind of how that looks, and I do have my cutting board underneath because that makes it so much easier to put in the refrigerator or the freezer. And again, you can put it in either. I found that it took about 15 minutes in the freezer. I think it would take longer, like a half an hour in the refrigerator. Once these are ready, you can keep them in the refrigerator. I usually keep them in the freezer because frozen chocolate's delicious and it doesn't compromise the flavor at all. Okay, it took about 20 minutes for these to freeze in my freezer, and they should just pop out and look like this. Now, since we put the dried fruit in it, there will be places where there's little holes, but basically I just push from the bottom and release the chocolate. So some of them will be absolutely perfect looking, and others may have a little bit of cranberry showing, which is actually kind of nice. See if I can find one like that. So these ones I actually took with me to an event that I was teaching at, and we had a booth. And the problem was it was in the summer and they melted. So because I'm not using 100% cacao butter, we're also including the coconut oil. It's a good idea to have them on ice if you're gonna take them out somewhere. And yeah, so basically, this is what happens with the chocolate. So I'm gonna just keep taking these out, and I'm putting them on a plate. You can put them in a little glass Tupperware thing. Having one every day is fine, so that you get a little bit of maca and lots of like nutrition from the chocolate. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed making this fun recipe, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, so that kind of was the demonstration part of this. And now I'm going to go into a little bit about the nutrition and also the effects on the brain that chocolate have on us. I will take questions at the end. So if you have questions, I don't think I can see those right now with my shared screen, but I will stop the share and answer questions about ingredients if you guys have any. So we're going to talk first about cacao, and cacao is separated into butter or fat and also the powder. So first I'll talk about the fat. It's basically 97% saturated fat, and saturated fat got kind of a bad rap at one point, but mostly when we're talking about poor quality saturated fat, that comes from grain-fed animals or like high fried vegetable oils and chips and crisps and stuff like that. It's not really what we mean when we talk about cacao, like raw cacao or coconut butter. So this shows you that 33% is stearic acid. That's the largest amount in cacao. And that's actually a saturated fat that has been shown in research to lower LDL, which I call like less desirable cholesterol, and raise HDL or highly desirable cholesterol. And it's also found in grass-fed beef, which a lot of countries in Europe have so much grass-fed beef. I'm very jealous because we don't have as much here. And an interesting study actually showed that grass-fed beef has 36% higher stearic acid than grain-fed beef, and that people who eat grass-fed beef have correlated, it's correlated with faster metabolism and lower waist size. So this is actually like a better fat for you. It also has oleic acid, which is a monounsaturated fat, also present in breast milk and olive oil. This is one that's destroyed with the higher roasting temperatures, and it's beneficial for cardiovascular health, blood sugar balance, immunity, and inflammation. And it has palmitic acid, which is also found in breast milk and in coconut oil. And it has linoleic acid, which is an omega-6 family fat, which is healthy sourced from nuts, seeds, and avocados. So we always want to have a balance of omega-6 and omega-3. So it's not bad for you to eat omega-6, but make sure to eat things like fish and like oily fish like salmon as well. Or if you don't eat meat, algae often has really high sources of omega-3. Now, the powder to me is more interesting than the fat. This is incredible, guys. So it's extremely high in sulfur, which is a beautifying mineral, really good for the skin and the hair. It's high in magnesium, which is great for stress, for sleep, for bones and muscles, especially during pregnancy. It's good for menopausal or perimenopausal mood swings. It's also high in iron. It's actually the highest plant source we have for iron, with 312% of the recommended daily allowance. So basically off the charts. And iron is really important in postpartum because it's lost during childbirth, and also it's good for breastfeeding. Having good iron stores supply the baby with iron for proper development and thyroid function for baby and mom. Cacao powder is also high in phosphorus, which is good for bones and teeth. It's high in B vitamins. Particularly B12 is important for red cell development, energy production, and helping to form DNA. And I love learning about DNA. I don't know if you guys have been reading about this, but epigenetics is the turning on and off of certain genes, and having really healthy DNA is super important. So I like that this has a lot of B12 in it. It's also been shown that low amounts of B vitamins can cause irritability in both the baby and the mother. And chocolate, and actually almost every ingredient in this recipe, is really high in antioxidants. So that's important because it helps to rid the cells of free radicals and protects cells from damage. And it also reduces inflammation. And in the case of cacao, it comes from flavonoids. Natural chocolate contains the highest capacity of the antioxidant procyanidin, which is protective against heart disease and cancer. And it has 2 times the antioxidants per serving as a glass of red wine. I'm not saying don't enjoy your wine, but you can have chocolate too. And also 3 times that of green tea, and also green tea is amazing. So like having all these things in your diet, you're going to have really good antioxidant and protection against free radicals. Also, for the oxygen radical absorbency capacity scale, it is off the charts. It has 995 units per gram. And that means it's one of the top foods for antioxidant properties. Incidentally, the top essential oil for this is clove essential oil. Also off the charts. I don't recommend clove during pregnancy. It's one of the oils we shouldn't use during pregnancy. And also, I was really averted to the smell of clove when I was pregnant. And I learned that one of the emotional aspects is that it separates you from being enmeshed with people, emotionally. And I think just having young kids, a lot of parents don't want to be separated. So I wonder if part of it was just on an emotional level, especially when my kids were young. I was averted to that whole idea of being separated from people that were so close to me. But it's also actually not great to have during pregnancy because of its effects on thinning the blood. So on to chocolate in the brain. I'm really geeky about this stuff. I can't even say geeky. I'm geeky about this stuff. I think it's really interesting, but I'll go through it kind of quickly. So chocolate and cacao affect the neurotransmitters, which are our chemical messengers in the brain. And the first one I'll talk about is one that's called, really hard to pronounce, by the way. I've looked it up 20 times and tried to practice this, but I'll probably mess it up. Anandamada, something like that. It's short for, or taken from the Sanskrit word andana, which means bliss or joy. And it's basically a fatty acid neurotransmitter that works on cannabinoid receptors, which is the same thing that THC works on. It's called the bliss chemical. And it's kind of something you might know better from getting a runner's high or an exercise high. And another really cool thing is that there are enzyme inhibitors in cacao that limit or slow the breakdown of this neurotransmitter. So not only does it make you feel blissful or joyful to eat cacao, but chocolate is inherently making it last longer. So other foods that contain cannabinoids include cinnamon, oregano, black pepper, copaiba, broccoli, kale, and sprouts. So chocolate also contains tryptophan, which is known to be relaxing. It's good for euphoria, and probably because it makes the neurotransmitter serotonin. In America, we have our big turkey Thanksgiving. I don't know if you guys say this there after Christmas dinner or something, but we always are like, oh, we're so tired after dinner because of the tryptophan in the turkey. But in actuality, there's not really enough tryptophan in turkey to make you tired. I think it's more the carbohydrate load, I think, that makes people tired. But with regard to cacao, like when you hear about all these relaxing, kind of energizing constituents, like this has something that I learned about when studying nutrition, or I love to cook, so mixing ingredients in the kitchen, and also as an herbalist and making blends for aromatherapy and things like that. You learn that the sum makes more than the whole. So the sum of the parts is worth more than the whole. So this is how I feel about these nutrients and these neurotransmitter like chemicals, is that because they work in synergy, even though there's just a little bit of these things in cacao, they work together to have this overlapping effect of relaxation, and that they're definitely known for being something that gets you in the mood. They raise libido, also good for fertility. But I think just keep that in mind, that the overall picture is the overlapping of all of these things. And what tryptophan can do, and also serotonin, is it can take you from a state of overthinking to a state of feeling. So you can see how this is used as like an aphrodisiac. It also can take you out of the fight or flight mode, or the sympathetic dominant state that most of us are in, especially post-COVID. Most everyone I talk to is like in a state of stress all the time. And it's great if chocolate, like a piece of chocolate, can give you the same feeling as exercise high, as receiving a hug, as being in love, which I'm going to get to. Like, it's pretty incredible that we can get this from this food. And it helps us to relax and be calm. So another nutrient is a neurotransmitter that's associated with falling in love. It's called the molecule of joy, or we often call it PEA. And this is one that literally, like, everyone pronounces differently. So I'm going to call it phenylethylamine. I've heard it said in so many different ways, but I don't know. We can just call it PEA. How's that sound? So PEA triggers the release of serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. And norepinephrine's kind of like your adrenaline, right? So serotonin and dopamine are like relaxing, calming, whereas then you get a little boost of energy. So to me, that speaks of passion, right? Where you're energized, but in a really good way. And it's based on relaxation. So I really love the juxtaposition between having a lot of energy and being really relaxed at the same time. So I love that about this. And what that does, again, is it creates a natural state of ease that takes you from your head into your heart. Another thing, I have a background in studying energetic medicine. I'm a Reiki master teacher. I've been training cranial sacral therapy, and I also did a bunch of gemstone workshops in healing, and I learned in those. Those are incredible, by the way. I didn't think they would do anything, but I went to this weekend away in the woods and studied gemstones, and it's incredible. But I learned that lapis lazuli has the same effect of taking you out of your head and into your heart, or like actually connecting the head and the heart. So just thought I'd throw that in there in case you're interested in gemstone energy. It also has arginine, which is an amino acid that is called nature's Viagra. It was called heart blood, I think, by the Aztecs. Yes. Okay. There's a couple other things to say that I missed about PEA. I'm going to go back. Sorry, I missed these things. But okay, so there are only two foods that have PEA, and one is cacao and the other is blue-green algae. And what it does is it helps us to have focused, alert, intelligent thinking, right? So you're really in the moment, thinking clearly. It gives you improved mental positivity, and on a health level, like physical health level, helps with joints and tissues. And this is another thing that's destroyed by high roasting temperatures. So I'd mentioned earlier that I'd heard people speak incorrectly saying that raw cacao does not have this, but what they mean is like truly raw cacao, not the type I'm recommending that you buy that is just roasted at lower temperatures. The University of Nottingham Medical School has research on cacao that shows promise for enhancing brain function in older adults. There was a survey done as well. 52% of women said they'd choose chocolate over sex. As one woman put it, chocolate provides guaranteed pleasure. Okay, so going on to the Mao inhibitors, that's another thing present, which these are considered antidepressant and anti-aging. And finally, one of my favorite things about cacao, because I can't handle caffeine in large amounts, I can drink decaf coffee before noon, and I have to have a small amount or I am completely wired all day. I can't sleep that night. And I actually had my DNA done recently, and I read in there that no, my body just doesn't process, because of my genetics, doesn't process caffeine well. So as much as I like being alert, and maybe you've noticed I'm drinking kombucha, like, so that's the kind of caffeine I can handle. But what I love about chocolate is it's very low amounts of caffeine, but it has a lot of theobromine. And theobromine is an energizing alkaloid. It's not a central nervous system stimulant like coffee. And coffee is considered a adrenomimic, which means it mimics adrenaline, which is great. Like if you're going to go on a run, or you can handle caffeine, unlike me. But I like this. I read below, I was just curious what the difference in caffeine amount was between coffee and hot chocolate, for example. So the USDA National Nutrition Database says that a cup of hot chocolate has 7.44 milligrams of caffeine, whereas a single cup of brewed coffee has 96 milligrams. So significantly less caffeine than you'd find in coffee. And I did that. My boyfriend's like, you should tell people that you did that. That's my chalkboard art that I did recently on my chalkboard in my kitchen. And I just thought it was cute for other ingredients slide. So now I'm going to talk about the other ingredients in this recipe, and not in as much detail as cacao. But I did want to say a little bit about coconut oil, because half of the fats, as you saw in the video, are from coconut oil. Now, if you live in the tropics or you keep your house warm, you probably want to keep this chocolate in the refrigerator or the freezer at all times, because it will melt, because it has coconut oil. And I never really put this together, but when I was looking into this class, I realized that coconut oil, which we use a lot topically in aromatherapy, it melts on your skin, whereas cacao has a higher melting temperature and it melts in your mouth. So that's why they say chocolate melts in your mouth. But I have put both of these fats together, which means that you can be holding this chocolate and have it melt in your skin before it gets to your mouth. So keep that in mind. And you can certainly, as long as you keep the same amount of fat, you can certainly add more cacao if you live in a warmer climate, or if you just would like it to not melt as easily. But I like the coconut oil for a number of different reasons. So it's 92% saturated fat, and it has lauric acid, which is a medium chain fatty acid, which is easier for us to break down. It's a better kind of saturated fat. And saturated fat is also, even though we don't cook at high heat in this temperature, for this recipe, it is one of those oils that's better to fry in than, say, olive oil, which is damaged when you fry. So this is one of the high heat cooking oils that's safe. Like if I buy crisps, I look for ones that are cooked in avocado oil or coconut oil. And this lauric acid is found in breast milk. So eating more coconut oil and cacao butter when you're pregnant, when you're nursing, is really great for building good breast milk. It also has palmitic acid, which is the principal saturated fat found in breast milk, and also in cacao butter. And it has caprylic acid, which is another medium chain fatty acid. It's highly antimicrobial. This is something I've taken before when doing cleanses to help cleanse the gut out of bad bacteria, for example. So in 1998, the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition published a study showing that lactating moms who eat coconut oil significantly increase lauric and caprylic acid in their breast milk. And this is important for helping the baby, the fetus, when you're pregnant, and also through breastfeeding to help build a healthy immune system. So great fat for babies. And then here's just a picture and a reminder to not use fractionated coconut oil in this recipe, because that will never harden, and we do want this to harden. Another ingredient I use is mesquite flour. So this is the mesquite tree on the right, and those are the seed pods on the left. And this plant grows in very arid conditions, dry conditions. I first was introduced to it when I lived in New Mexico. I did an apprenticeship on a medicinal herb farm. It was an amazing place to live. It was, I'd swear, like most of the town were either herbalists or some kind of health professional or a Native American, and the community was really integrated. It was a really cool place to study and live. And I grew chili peppers on a farm and also studied plant medicine. And we actually learned how to make flour out of the mesquite plant. When you basically take the seed pods, you de-seed them, and then you dry and grind the beans. And that's how you make mesquite flour. Now, this food was a sustenance food for the indigenous people, and people still use it, obviously. I did have friends in Europe. Look it up. You can buy this in Europe, even though It is known for being, like more of an American-based plant. It is available for you guys, so I hope you can find it. If you can't find it or you don't want to bother, you can put just a quarter cup more, or I forget what a quarter cup is in grams, but it says it in the recipe. You can just put more cacao flour in instead of adding the mesquite. I like the mesquite, and I'll tell you why, but one main reason is that it's a sweetener, so you can use less honey, but it's stabilizing to blood sugar. It is also, it's high in protein. It's 13% protein. It's low glycemic. It has 25% fiber. It's gluten-free. It only has 3% fat. It's very high in magnesium and calcium and potassium, iron, zinc, lysine, which is an amino acid or kind of protein, calcium, and it's also rich in galactomannans, which are soluble fibers, and they have prebiotic benefits. So that benefits the cardiovascular system. Prebiotics basically feed probiotics, which are what helps you to stay healthy. Most of our immune system is in our gut, and it's really important to have healthy gut flora, especially during pregnancy. So I'm working on materials for fertility, but one of the main things I'm going to suggest is to build your gut flora and kill off bad bacteria before you get pregnant. Great for the DNA for your baby, and it will make everything easier. Okay, so this is one of the superstars of this recipe, and also one reason why it's good for, romantic things like raising libido and fertility. But it's also good for people who are burned out. Like in my e-course, I have this kind of class on chocolate, and I call it like a postpartum superfood because people are burned out. But it's also good for like perimenopause and for men as well. It's good for fertility. But it's basically an adaptogen, which is a classification of herbs which helps you to handle life, basically. It helps you to handle stress and adapt. And it's from Peru. It's from the Andes, and it grows in very harsh conditions, very high altitudes, up to 4,000 meters, or for those who like feet, 13,000 feet high. And what I've learned over time from being an herbalist and is that when you have a plant that's grown in these kind of conditions, you do take on the attribute of being like a survivor and being able to handle harsh conditions yourself. And I know that local people, along with the cocoa root, that live at high altitudes, will use maca to help be able to breathe better and be able to survive in that kind of harsh environment. And you can see on the bottom right there that it's a tuber, it's a root. And similar, it's in the same family as broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and things like that. It comes in a black variety. Either one is totally fine for this recipe. They're both really good. It's also called Peruvian Ginseng, which you may know of ginseng as being really energizing. So is maca. However, it's also just so good for stress. I take this every day. I also take ashwagandha every day, which is another adaptogen. And if you want to take it as a supplement, you can start out at a half a teaspoon. So that is 2.5 milliliters, right? And then you can build up to about 30 milliliters, but just build up a little, like kind of slowly over time. You can add more if you're already taking maca every day and you want more in your chocolate. You can add more in your chocolate. I kind of gave, 3 tablespoons or 45 milliliters is like kind of a starting point so that people that aren't used to it will be able to adapt to it. And let's see, what else do I want to say? So it's very high in vitamin C, 133% of the RDI recommended daily intake of vitamin C. It's also high in copper, iron, potassium, B6, and manganese. It is stabilizing to blood sugar levels. It helps to raise libido. It can increase fertility in women and men, increase strength and boost energy after having a baby. It's great for perimenopause and sleep, and improving learning and memory. Another thing you can add it to are like energy bars. I don't usually cook it, but I have baked it added it to cookie and muffin mixes and stuff like that. But I like to make those like energy balls with, nut butter and dried fruit and things like that. And this is one of the powders you can add that kind of stabilizes it and makes it really great. And also cacao, of course. Okay, so two more ingredients here. Pomegranate, look how beautiful that is. And with anything in herbalism and in kind of traditional food practices, we look at seeds as being for fertility. And indeed, pomegranate is for fertility. It has more antioxidants than any other fruit. It has 3 times more than red wine and green tea. It contains more than 100 phytochemicals. And this is known as a fertility aid because it has been shown that the antioxidant levels help to deal with oxidative stress, which can cause sperm dysfunction and decrease fertility in women. It also helps to reduce oxidative stress in the placenta, and it boosts libido. So it can increase testosterone levels in men and women, and it's one of the main hormones behind sex drive. So this is great for all things, kind of Valentine's Day. Next, oops, sorry, wrong way. We're going to talk about, I always forget about honey because I think honey is just a better alternative than white sugar. It does have antioxidants. It's rich in polyphenols, and it's just a little bit better for you. It takes a little bit longer to digest it than like white sugar. So that's why I add honey to the recipe. And it's really versatile. You can add 3 spoonfuls or you can add 8. Just when you're when you're melting down the fats and before you add the essential oil, when you put the honey in, give it a taste. Just take a little spoonful and see if that's sweet enough for you. You'll get a little bit of sweetness from the mesquite flour, but the cacao is really bitter. So this is a pretty good judge of how sweet your recipe will be to just taste it from when you're cooking the fats and make it to taste. Tangerine essential oil. So this is just mainly in here for flavor because it's so fun to use essential oils to flavor your food. I use tangerine when I make French toast and it's amazing. I also, every year for Thanksgiving, I make an apple cranberry pie from a Cook's Illustrated recipe that's just always like a showstopper. Like everybody loves it. It's really good. And I think one of the secret ingredients must be that I put tangerine in the cranberry. So it's like a layer of cranberry sauce with tangerine essential oil and then the apples on top, and it's really good. And it's really nice with pomegranate. It's also good if you wanted to substitute the sweet or wild orange and use with dried cranberries. So play around. There's lots of different essential oils from the citrus family that you could put into this recipe. In the video I mentioned using frankincense as well and mixing that with a orange oil. I've used cinnamon, I've used peppermint in making chocolate. You can just play around and do what you want. Now, the citrus oils and tangerine will support healthy digestion and metabolism when you ingest them and are also uplifting and cleansing. I don't typically recommend people use essential oils internally when pregnant. I think there are situations in which it's totally fine, but I just feel negligent to recommend, like as a whole, that everyone just self-doses during pregnancy because we all have different constitutions, and then we have to get into a big conversation about quality. You should only use certified pure therapeutic quality essential oils and make sure the bottle says supplement facts if you're going to put it into anything you ingest. That being said, a lot of us drink 7-Up and stuff like that, and that has essential oils in it that have citrus. So I don't think that, I'm not like an alarmist about ingesting this during pregnancy if you're already doing that. I just don't feel comfortable broadly recommending it because I don't know what people are going to do. I don't know how responsible people are going to be with ingestion. I don't know how much more I want to say about this at the moment, but I do think that this chocolate could be eaten very safely during pregnancy, but in general, I recommend most essential oil use that's internal being done like after pregnancy in postpartum, and even then watching out for how you might flavor your breast milk, because I think if mama's chugging oregano, the baby's not going to like the milk, and there might be some loss to the probiotic quality of the milk. Although we do know that essential oils kill a lot more bad bacteria than good bacteria. They're pretty good at that. Okay, so here's the recipe again, and you can take a screenshot, but like I said, Vivien also put a link, right? You put a link at the bottom of the page, the landing page you have, and I'll give you that link in a minute. So I'm just going to flip through kind of quickly. I was trying
I'll be putting a link at the end. At the end of the presentation, there'll be a link to get the free ebook that'll have all of these recipes.
Okay, great. And I do have, I don't know if I gave you the same instructions, but anyway, there's also instructions on my website if they're not. I hope I did okay with the whole like conversion to whatever one of these grams and milliliters. That was the hardest part of all of this for me. And then also I just put, this is also in the booklet, but I put this up here, and I have it right here, and I've been spraying it around the room all morning, and it's ginger, cinnamon, ylang ylang, and then sweet or wild orange. And it's like really relaxing and kind of energizing at the same time. It's a lovely, really lovely spray, and I've been using it tons. And especially in February, it's cold a lot of places, and it's just really nice and warming. So try to make it and let me know if you like it. And that's also in Vivien's handout. And then Vivien and I are really excited that we have this book ready. We worked for a long time on it, and I think it looks great. So this is my new book, Essential Oils for Maternal Wellness. And right now it's available in English, and you can find it in Ireland, UK, and Germany, right, in those shops for essential oil supplies. And it's soon going to be available in more of your, what do you call them, distributing offices in other countries in Europe. And it's also soon going to be ready in German, Italian, and Portuguese. I also have other languages in the works. My e-course is being translated into 10 languages. It's ready in Italian right now. This is different information. So the e-course I actually wrote years ago, and it was a training course for midwives, is all that study I said I did, after I left my clinic, and put it together, and I taught all around the United States live. It was really well received. And then I just said, why am I doing this and traveling so much? Why don't I make it available online for more people to be able to access? So I put it online, and then I said, this isn't just for midwives, this is for everybody. And now it's available for everybody, and you get a certificate of completion, and you will come away with complete confidence in recommending essential oils to others. The book is different. I'm really proud of it. It came to me out of pure inspiration, and I just, like, my whole body tingling and like vibrating, like when I woke up and had the idea to write it. And I do know that it's going to be important for some people to read, and I hope that you'll give it a look if you are pregnant, or if you're recommending essential oils to pregnant people, or if you're a birth professional especially. To have these tools is really important. And just to kind of give you a little idea about what it is, the beginning talks about all the different safety recommendations. I tell you everything, okay? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not high risk to use essential oils during pregnancy, but I don't want you to be putting them in your ears and doing things like that. I really want you to know, look, these are really safe, but you need to know how to use them. So there's sections on how to use them safely, how to use them in a hospital setting or with medication. And then I do highlight, I think, 17 of my favorite essential oils and their attributes, when to use them. I talk about dosages and different applications, but the main heart of it is kind of walking you through by the first occurring kind of discomfort of pregnancy all the way through infant care. So if you've never been pregnant before and you don't know what to expect, you get a little narrative story that I wrote about my experiences. I've got 3 kiddos. I had 2 home births, and I had a really tough first delivery. So I do share my story about that. And then I say, in hindsight, here are the essential oils I would have used if I would have known. And I've recommended these to hundreds of women and have gotten, feedback. So I do have the clinical experience, even though I didn't get to use them for myself for the most part. And then I talk about precautions. I have a nutritional section. So if you have joint pain, for example, like why, I tell you what is going on in your body, what chemical changes are happening to make you suddenly have joint pain, and what essential oils to use, what nutritional things you could do. For example, you can take enzymes between meals, help with joints, whereas if you take enzymes with meals, it helps with digestion. So there's little tips like that I think are pretty fun and useful. And yeah, I guess that's it. I'm going to take some questions, but here is that link I've been talking about, which is my landing page for this talk, and has a lot more information and detail. I was asked, I taught this a couple days ago in the States, and everybody was like, where do I get these ingredients? And I wish I could say more for you all in Europe, but I just know I found them in Ireland, even in Sligo, which is a pretty small city. You can find them there in a shop, or just search online. I know Amazon has them. It's not usually the first place I recommend. I'd rather go local, but and then my friend in Italy looked it up and she could find them. So I hope you don't have trouble finding the ingredients and that you try this recipe. And again, that's me and my contact information. And I want to stop the share and see if there are any questions. Let's see.
So if you could, thank you, Stephanie. That was absolutely fabulous. If you could mute everybody, and we'll give everybody the opportunity to ask any questions that you might like. I have a couple of questions, but Numi, Sandra, Alison, Julia, please fire away if you have any questions.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. No questions, but thank you very much indeed. That was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, thank you.
That's the best sort of rundown on the benefits of cacao that I've heard. So it was really, really interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Lovely. Thank you, Julia. So Alison says, thank you. If you can't use coconut oil due to allergies, what else could you use instead?
I suggest you just use more cacao. It'll make the chocolate a little bit harder, but it's great. A lot of chocolate recipes just use cacao. So just use, just make sure that the amounts stay the same to help with the balance of the powders.
Okay, and Numi says, loved it. She doesn't have any questions, but loved
thank you.
the presentation. Just a couple of notes on the recipe ingredients. Now, many people don't have scales that will go to 1 gram.
Okay.
They have it usually regular scales go to the nearest 5 grams. So I have adjusted the recipes because 2 or 3 grams makes barely minuscule difference to a recipe.
Okay.
So I've rounded the recipe ingredients in our ebook to the nearest gram, the nearest 5 grams. And so don't worry about that. When some of the recipes said 96 grams, don't worry about that. It's captured in our recipe download. And also, you said in the presentation to add more cacao powder if you don't have mesquite powder. Mm-hmm. So is it literally, because the chocolate recipe requires 30 grams of cacao, 30 grams of mesquite powder. So if you didn't have mesquite, would you use an additional 30 grams of cacao?
Well, I think that the weight is probably, we do not weigh, well, I don't weigh, I use a measuring cup for dry ingredients. So it's a little tricky because the cacao weighs a different amount than the mesquite. I would say it's pretty forgiving. So what I would recommend is that you maybe mix what you have, like just the cacao with the oil, and see what kind of consistency it is. And you can just add more powder. You just want it to be pourable. And by the way, if you don't have one of those latex trays, I mean, you can put this on a plate and just crack it, open with your hands. It doesn't.
I was going to, yes,
you don't have to have all the equipment. And I don't even have a double boiler. I just use like a big pan and a little pan on top. So it doesn't have to be perfect looking and to taste good. But yeah, I would just say look more at the consistency. It's really simple. You're just balancing the consistency so that it's pourable. And
dip your finger in and give it a taste.
My second batch I actually made a little thicker because I ran out of the fats I needed, and I just used a spoon and it was a little bit thicker, and the chocolate's still amazing. Like, it's fine. It's pretty forgiving. Okay.
And if you don't have, let's have a look. So I was going to say that cranberry pie recipe sounds divine. So we need that recipe.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's Cooks Illustrated. I think so. Basically, with Cooks Illustrated, you're supposed to. I think I could take a picture of my very filthy, dirty magazine that I've had for 10 years since I like my recipes to be dirty and look like they've used them a lot because I love them so much. So if you don't mind that's all I can give you. I guess
I've just popped it in the chat, everyone. It's Cooks Illustrated. So
yeah,
if you want to link me to that,
right,
I'll send it out.
I can't give you a link because it's private. Like, you actually have to sign up for Cooks Illustrated online. But I order the magazine. I don't have the online.
Oh, sorry, everybody, but I'm sold on that.
It's great. You use vodka in the crust so that it use some water, some vodka, so it evaporates and makes it more flaky. It's a great recipe.
Lovely. Sounds amazing. And let's have a look. What else did I have as a question? So I was going to say, that was the other thing I was going to mention, was if you don't have the latex silicone molds, don't worry about it. I love to make what we kind of term bark, and it is just literally grease-proof paper, not wax paper because it will stick to it. Grease-proof paper in a tray. Literally pour on your mix. You can sprinkle over the top your pomegranate or your almonds or your pecans. Sprinkle them over the top. You could put cashew nuts or all those types of things, that whatever kind of takes your fancy. Bob it in the fridge. Once it's, or the freezer, once it's frozen, it will come out. It'll be like a big slab, and literally just break it up into pieces. And I actually find that quite a divine way of eating it. Quite satisfying. It's all a bit crispy and crunchy and all broken up randomly.
You can even use rose petals, dried rose petals, and like crush them on top. Like, it's beautiful looking. So yeah, this is one to play around with. And I forgot to say, I like to give, like, how I learned about the mesquite is from Kate. She's British, Kate Magic Wood. And she's got this really cool book that it like shows you how to make broccoli with cacao butter. I mean, it's awesome. So this is not her recipe, but it started out that way. I've just changed it a lot over time. But I do like to like give her credit for helping me to learn how to use mesquite in chocolate making. And I meant to say that earlier.
Just put that in the chat if anybody wants to look that up. Kate Magic Wood.
Yeah. She's a bit eccentric, very eccentric, but her recipes are like crazy and they're fun. So
wonderful. Well, I've also bobbed, you will see, so I've bobbed the link in the chat. You will see a link there to the wonderful ebook mini ebook with recipes for so let me just tell you what recipes are in there. So you'll see a recipe for Luscious Love bath blend, which is a bath blend. It's a super enhancer for libido as well as fertility. It's got ylang ylang and sandalwood in there, and Madagascar vanilla, which are very relaxing aphrodisiacs. So that's a beautiful bath blend in the recipe book. There's also a love tonic, so a roller bottle recipe with ginger, lavender, and grapefruit, which is just a simple aromatic massage blend with all of the ingredients to boost your energy and mood and lift your confidence. And then there's the Sweetheart's Room Spray that Stephanie mentioned, which I am looking forward to trying out because it sounds absolutely beautiful, with cinnamon, ginger, ylang ylang, and wild orange. So it's quite warming and energizing, whilst at the same time relaxing with the oils that it has in there. So I'm looking forward to producing that. It's then got the tantalizing tangerine chocolate, the raw chocolate we've had demonstrated tonight. And it's got a Divine Delight chocolate velvet cake. And I've got to say, it's made with beetroot. Sounds absolutely amazing. Haven't made it yet, but looking forward to doing so this weekend. So lots of wholesome, really natural ingredients, and there's a gluten-free alternative on that recipe as well. And in addition to that, there's a beautiful, I could just eat it as a dessert with the picture that's on there, but a beautiful natural chocolate treat that you can use for little ones, that's made with banana, avocado, unsweetened cacao powder, and maple syrup. And it's a topping for the cake, but equally it can be used as maybe a treat and a pudding for the little ones. So that's got superfood benefits as well. And then it's got some hints and tips of other products that you might like to utilize at the same time to complement your use of raw cacao and its many, many health benefits. Now, if you've enjoyed this evening, we'd love to know. We'd love to hear about it, and just share and post on social and let us know what you think. And in the book also, you'll see the ebook, you'll also see a link to a book called Cacao Addict. Now, if you've really enjoyed what you've heard tonight, you're not only going to get these free recipes through the ebook, but you might also want to explore the Cacao Addict. So the ebook is...
Who wrote that? I'm just wondering if he's the gentleman I met in Germany a couple years ago at the convention in Dusseldorf.
Yes, it was John Croft.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's great. I didn't buy the book then because I didn't want to carry it, but it looks amazing.
Yeah, he was doing book signings for us. Yeah, John Croft, beautiful book. There's actually a a Turkish delight chocolate in there. It's not Turkish delight, but it tastes a little bit like that. But it does have rose petals on the top,
Nice.
and it's absolutely beautiful. And I actually really, really like that. But it's a fabulous book to make your own chocolate. So if you want to showcase your essential oils, use this recipe that's been presented to you this evening from the wonderful Stephanie, but also the Cacao Addict is an absolutely fabulous book, amazingly illustrated. And that's a nice one to add to your collection. So the ebook that you're going to get is actually, it's an interactive one. So you click on the pictures, you will go, it'll take you straight off to the page where you can view the product in more detail. So it's all interactive. So just click on it and it'll take you around the internet. So I hope you enjoy that. I have thoroughly enjoyed, Stephanie, what you've presented to us tonight. I feel like I'm going away more empowered, more excited, more enthused to use cacao, and I understand it a lot more than I did before, certainly.
Good, thank you.
So I hope you're all enthused to use cacao and you've enjoyed this evening. And maybe you'll get the opportunity to get yourself some ingredients. Now, some of those ingredients do sound a bit unusual. I've done a search when we were preparing the recipes and the ebook. They're readily available.
They really are. I mean, because I live part-time in Tubbercurry, which is a tiny town, and I think we've found it not only in Sligo, but we've gone, I can't remember the name of the little town, but we've gone to other little towns with little specialty shops, and it's right there. So any kind of specialty food. And my friend in Austria said no problem there. So I don't know. I hope that
you won't have a
just
problem.
do it. Just look for natural food.
Natural food shops. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Should be good.
Well, everybody's saying thank you in the chat.
Thank you.
So much appreciated, Stephanie.
I appreciate you all taking time to be here tonight. Thank you.
Love cacao, and this has reminded me that I will need to get some more now. Yes, Alison. Dive in, everybody. There's nothing like embracing yourself in some good raw chocolate.
Yeah, exactly.